Welcome to the Jasmine Star Show, an opportunity for you and me and our dreams to intersect and connect in massive ways. I have to tell you that every so often I will just whip out my podcast mic and have a conversation of stuff that is floating on my mind. Welcome to the insides and the cavernous spaces in which my thoughts and ideations and visions dwell. Pull up a seat. I'm going to pour you a little something. Depending on the time of day that you're listening to this podcast, it could be anything from coffee, tea, or something a little bit stronger, depending if it's after 5 p.m. I have to tell you that I'm having this conversation and I'm using it as an opportunity for us to connect in a real way, but also, selfishly, as a way for me to listen back to this one day and think that I tried my best with what I had. Here's why. 2020 was like this really weird year for a lot of people, myself included. It was weird and amazing in that we had 24-hour notice to adopt a baby girl, and we said yes. It was weird in that very early in 2020, we found a really old home built in like the 1950s that hadn't been touched at all. And it was a pocket listing, and we spoke to the owner and we made an offer to which she accepted in 24 hours. So we listed our house and we sold our house in 24 hours. And we adopted a baby. We lived in Las Vegas for almost a month throughout that process. And we came home with just 2 days to move out of our house, and we didn't know where we were going. And this was happening in March 2020. And this is when all the major close downs were occurring. So there wasn't very many places for us to rent. So we found an apartment and we just thought, we'll be here for a few months while the house gets repaired. And then COVID happened and everything was closed down in our city. And we couldn't get permits and we couldn't start building. And here we are, second quarter of 2021, and the house still is not done. So I started thinking, what must I do in my life and business to change how I want this year to unfold? So I did the only thing I knew how. I brought out a piece of paper and an envelope, and I wrote myself a letter. But I wrote myself a letter and I dated it December 31st, 2021. I wrote the letter as if I was writing the letter on New Year's Eve, because I want to open that letter on New Year's Eve and see how the vision of what I expected life to be and the reality of it turned out. Now, I know that some people look at this as a waste of time or they look at it as particularly woo-woo, but I am telling you there is something actionable, there is something palpable, and there is something massive about seeing your words and then triggering synapses in your brain to figure out ways to make it happen. And I am not at all a doctor, and I study the brain like in my pastime. I love the brain. I think the brain is so powerful. And one of the things that the brain can do is that it has a hard time distinguishing between thoughts and dreams and like actual reality. So the brain is looking at all things being equal. And so this is probably why when you wake up from like a bad dream, like it's very often, I wake up in a bad dream. I'm very fortunate. JD and I, we're not perfect. Oh gosh, we're so not perfect. But like arguing is not something we really do. Not because we're like amazing, but it's just not our mode of communication. We just don't really argue. So if I have a dream that we got into an argument, like I wake up and I am just like, how dare you say those things about my mama? Okay, so that's the brain. That is the brain tricking you. So if we have the opportunity to think thoughts that the brain then brings in as its own reality, the brain is hardwired to figure out how to make those things happen. So let's bring out a very simple example from something I listed in the letter. And it's personal. This is very personal. And we don't really talk too much about it because it's complicated and it's layered, and then I end up getting emotional about it. At the time of this recording, for reasons I will not get into, we do not have custody of Luna. It's complicated, and our adoption is not finalized. Again, COVID complications, and it's just a really hard place for me to be in. So in this letter, I wrote that JD and I was writing the letter while being in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. The reason why this seems like a bit of a stretch is because we don't have custody of Luna, she still technically has her birth name, and we can't get a birth certificate with her adopted name. And when we don't have a birth certificate with her adopted name, we will not be able to get a passport. So travel for us has been really limited. And so for me to write this letter, remember, I'm writing the letter as if it is December 31st, 2021, and I write that we're in Cabo San Lucas. That is leading me and my brain to believe and know that the adoption has been finalized as a result of us getting custody. And it had to happen this year. So I'm writing the letter, and I say that I'm writing the letter in Cabo San Lucas, and I'm describing the sounds that I hear, which is the crashing wave and birds along the Sea of Cortez. I am writing the smells that I smell, which is coffee, early morning Mexican breakfast, the smells of salt in the air. I'm describing what I'm wearing. I am wearing a long white kaftan over a bathing suit. And the reason why I am talking about the sights, the sounds, and the smells, and tactical things as clothing is that the thoughts in my mind are preparing me to believe and know that that will become a reality. Now, do I know with certainty that we will get custody and finalization of adoption will happen? No, I don't. But if I start preparing my mind and my heart to start watching for indications and to start asking for things from lawyers and agencies and social workers, that the idea is forcing my brain to find ways to make it a reality, my actions will lead to it becoming a reality. Now, whether or not it happens within my timeline, that is not for me to determine, but I am functioning like my brain. I'm telling my brain that it is December 31st and this is what is actually happening. And lo and behold, from now, the point of this recording to the end of December, my brain is going to start looking for a white kaftan to wear over a bathing suit. That's just facts. And so when we start thinking of sights and sounds and scents, our brain is going to start finding ways to make that a reality because our brain does not know the differences between what is happening in real time and what is happening in thoughts of our future, which is crazy. I know I sound like I'm going bananas, but y'all, let me tell you that every time I write a letter, every time, y'all, it happens faster and bigger than I expect. In December 2019, as part of my end of year process, I wrote a letter and I said that by December 2021, right, like 2 years when I was writing a letter, that Social Curator would have its own tech department, its own development team, and it would have its own CTO. And I started that letter saying that this is the thing that would happen. And I would have no idea that in March 2020, a mere 4 months later, we would hire our first CTO. Our first chief technology officer. It was as if my brain was opening pathways for conversations and discoveries and things that I should be doing to get the thing that I want. Every time I wrote a letter. So I'm going to tell you, I've been in my feelings. The business is growing, and just like growing with anything, there's growing pains and there's lessons to be learned and there's victories to be celebrated, but there's also these low points of wondering, like, I don't really know the next best thing to do. So I'm just going to start testing a lot of things, and there's uncertainty in that. And then there's uncertainty in my personal life when it comes to finally adopting our daughter. And there's uncertainty with a lot of different things in my life. But when I put things on paper, it is mapping my actions to my thoughts. And I wonder what that would look like for you. I just brought up a very simple example of where I started the letter. It was in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and it's December 31st, and I'm wearing a white kaftan, and that probably sounds so ridiculous to you, but let me tell you, it will be a game changer. It will be amazing that if I can record a podcast in December while in Cabo San Lucas, it's just proof and testament of what God can do for people who will think and then act on the things that they want. And even if I'm not recording this podcast in Cabo San Lucas in December, it will happen. I will be recording a podcast episode from Cabo San Lucas. I'm acting as if it will be in December. I will not be disappointed if it happens thereafter, but it will happen. Mark my words. And because I believe this with all sincerity, I'm going to invite you to write a letter as if it is December 31st, 2021. And I really want you to be specific. I want you to talk about where you're sitting, who you're sitting with, what does the day look like, what your plans are. And then I want you to include details like what happened that year. Like, remember, you're writing the letter as if it is December 31st, 2021, and things have already happened. In these letters, I do not say this will happen. I said it has happened. Like, it is done. In this letter, I talk about the roles that we hired in Social Curator in 2021. I talk about how the development team has grown, and then I've labeled each of the roles that we hired for. I talked about the expansion of the business that we've done. I talk about the accomplishments that have been acquired. I talk about the awards that we have won. I talk about the interviews. I talk about the publications, like as if it was already done. Because once we dwell in the space of what has been done, our mind is then open to how we then make that happen. Our eyes are open to opportunities that we might have overlooked had we not already told our brain, it is finished and it is done. So this is me inviting you to write a letter, date it December 31st, 2021, and write it as if it has been finished. Write it as if it has been done. It is a simple act of you believing, and then you taking your beliefs and mapping your actions to your desires. It is not enough for you just to I hope it's going to happen. Great. Once you've opened those pathways in your brain will help you get there. You have to then take action. Friend, I'm recording this for you to join me. And I also said that I'm recording this selfishly because I want to listen back to this on December 31st. And I really, 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 really hope and I will behave as if everything I want has happened. And I really, really, really look forward to the end of 2021 being able to say that the adoption has been finalized. The right people joined our team. Our fundraising efforts exceeded our expectations. That results from members of Social Curator blew our minds, and that our growth had been unrivaled. I look forward to saying that, not because I was lucky, but because I worked as if the dreams were actually a possibility. And I believe that it is. And I hope that you believe it too. I hope that wherever you're listening in today, that please know that it was intended. You were supposed to hear this message. You were supposed to have this conversation with me. Write the letter. Don't push it off. Write it, seal it, and then together we'll open them on December 31st, 2021. If you do, not if, when you write that letter for the diehards and the rolling deep and the homies, for those of you who are writing that letter, will you just take a picture of it? I don't need to know your business. You could just take a picture of the envelope. You could take a picture of your signature, whatever. Take a picture and send me a DM. I just want to know you. That's it. I want to see you taking action. I don't want to be alone in this wild journey called entrepreneurship, because when I do it with people, I am accountable to you and you're accountable to me. And together we are accountable to our dreams. I look forward to seeing those letters, y'all, on Instagram at Jasmine Star. If these random bonus episodes, if these podcasts mean something to you, friend, I would love to see you drop a review of the Jasmine Star Show on Apple Podcasts. Y'all, it means the world to us. When you give us feedback, it empowers us to land epic guests, because they know that the people who show up here are action takers, listeners, and people who chase wild, audacious dreams. Your reviews help us. You take just 10 seconds to write a few kind words. It'll move the needle for us. Thank you. I look forward to us connecting and reading our letters on December 31st, 2021. Have a good day.